Peace and blessings. This is Misal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum, coming at you with another episode from the OG Den with historian Keenan Booker, aka the God 720. And this brother's got a lot of knowledge. He's an entrepreneur, an artist, an author, and just a fabulous individual. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to kick this off with another topic about the saints, which he really educated me on. It's a very powerful system. Speaking of the system of Catholicism, and it's very old. You know, in my own research, I found out that Catholicism, if we was to take the Christian narrative, would have began approximately about 67 AD. And a lot of the rituals that occur in the Catholic Church, they're very consistent with what we find in biblical lore. You know, some people may think, you know, this thing is sort of like, you know, with the saints, what is that sort of thing? But when you look, even in Jewish, you know, the scriptures, the Tanakh, we find the Holy of Holies, there's angels on the Ark of the Covenant. Someone needs to get healed, looked at the copper serpent. So the use of relics was never an issue in pure biblical lore. But I'm going to turn the floor over to Brother 720, and he's going to drop some knowledge with us about the saints. We were specifically talking about Saint Benedict the Moor and his influence and that sort of thing. But you can take it wherever you want to begin at, brother.
Well, Saint Benedict the Moor, that was an interesting find for me. Mm-hmm. He's an incorruptible because it's clear, because his name is the Moor, mm-hmm. Saint Benedict the Moor, and it's clearly on there. Mm-hmm. So there was no disrespect throughout time, you know, even though there's another saint that's the slayer of Moors, okay? But that saint is actually a fictitious story, okay? Yeah. Saint Benedict the Moor is an incorruptible saint. His story, I don't have his story memorized, but his story is unique. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think his story does have some slavery involved in it, as many stories of many saints does. Mm-hmm. So it's not a racial thing, okay? When I say that he's an incorruptible saint, that means his body did not corrode. And without his body corroding, he was so divine for the miracles that he committed, or there was miracles done at his how his body was found, or miracles done at his grave site. There has to be miracles incorporated with the scenario of creating a saint. You know what I'm saying? So they usually find the body 200, 300 years supposedly after, and it was, you know, incorruptible. Nothing happened to it, you know.
Yeah.
But this is on a metaphysical and a modern. It's a metaphysical, and it's also a modernization of mummifying, mm-hmm. from ancient Egypt. You see?
Yes. Yeah.
So when you understand the origins of Catholicism, the early popes, they all have Egypt attached to their name. Mm-hmm. So there was definitely a science that was being drafted out that was incorporated and merged with and modernized through Catholicism's ancient Egyptian system, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of saints come from North Africa and things of that nature. Saint Benedict the Moor, his body is located in Palermo, Italy, right now. Okay, and he is the saint over African Americans here, and his feast day is April 4th. April 4th is also the same day as Martin Luther King's death. It's also the same day of Maya Angelou's birthday. Okay, and I've also made that Saint Tupac Shakur's feast day. I'm gonna throw that in there too, because there's a lot of activity that occurred there on that day. Okay, and there's many saints over many over one day. You can have 10 to 20 saints that have the same feast day. There's over 4,000, 5,000 saints. And also Los Angeles, California was established on April 4th.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of other stuff, and I'm pretty sure
California too, it's very interesting, with all of that, you know what I mean? So Khalifa, whatever, so it's very interesting,
Yeah, yeah. And then there's a Saint Benedict of Nursia. Saint Benedict the Moor and Saint Benedict of Nursia are the saints that are incorporated with my rosary beads, my green rosary beads that I have on kickedoutofheaven.com.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing if I got some around here right now with me, but I don't. But yeah, those so Saint Benedict the Moor, his patronage is African Americans. I was very excited about this. It was interesting. One reason is because we're associated with the so-called Moorish community, who have never brought this to our awareness.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know if they know anything about it. There's many schools and churches here in America that are dedicated to Saint Benedict.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and one of them has a statue of a saint standing on top of it, and he is solid black.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was interesting to find. There really is no racial line when it comes to Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't, one thing people have to understand about the African American slave trade is that during that time period, the entire planet, no matter where you went, slavery was a part of the social system.
Yeah.
Right. So we have to understand that during the African American slave trade, there wasn't really a true identification of blacks as slaves or whites as slaves or Asians as slaves. It was criminals or just the downfall. Okay, the downtrodden, shall we say, those who have defallen to that zone, or those who haven't, existence is based upon love. Your love is going to create whatever ferociousness level you need to provide security for yours. And part of that security is intelligence. So if you haven't enforced these lines upon your own nor your children, then it will definitely show in your conditions. And those conditions, if you live in squalid conditions and if you accept that as your existence and you do not demand greater, then you have also fallen in position to be inferior to those who do not think like that. And for those who do not think like that, can automatically, manipulate you and utilize you in whatever format they want to. This is the law, the rules of engagement that we have. You see what I'm saying? So I say all that to state that, yeah, you have Jewish money, Catholic money, and a lot of other different forms of money that were involved in the slave trade. But what you have to understand is that at the beginning of the slave trade, when it comes to the African American side, because there's been many different slave trades all across the planet in all different time periods, okay? So it didn't start out with a direct identification on, we're going to take these black people, okay? Because during the medieval times, and this goes into the Moorish position inside Catholicism, you have Christian Moors and you have Catholic Moors. Christian and Catholic Moors, the ones that joined the orders had to develop a couple of orders in order to kidnap back their people from Islamic Moors. So, right, and they were both black. So it was black people kidnapping black people. Okay, is what you have to understand. Okay, so I talk about this because in the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s, you got a lot of orders being developed, and at that time, it was a common practice for Jews to kidnap Christians, Christians to kidnap Jews, Muslims to kidnap Jews. Well, the Muslims and Jews never really had extreme funk in between them during the courses of history from what I've seen. Okay.
Yeah.
But when it comes to usually in the historical pages, we see more hatred focused upon the Jews and more self-righteousness of that hatred focused on Jews. Okay. So then you have that later on there's conflicts in with the Muslims. So I'm saying all this to say that everybody was kidnapping everybody during these times.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of saints, black saints, that come from this time period that were incorporated into the Catholic structure. And there's also saints before that, Saint Cyprius, like Cyprian, like you ran into.
Yeah.
And you got Melania, that's in Africa. Saint Melania is a black woman, and hence the word Melania, close to melanin, has over 25,000 slaves. Okay, one of her patrons is slaves. Slavery. You know what I'm saying? So, back to the Saint Benedict the Moor, he's just one individual. Another one that was very unique was Saint Flower, that is extremely black. And Saint Flower is we eat a lot of flour in our foods. Black people are attracted to a lot of bread. So for them to have a Saint Flower, that's a metaphysical mind, incorporate, pertaining to our culture. You know what I'm saying? And how we naturally operate. You see, so. The most thing that's astounding about all of this, not only just the black saints or, the black Madonnas, and also the fact that all the archangels are solid black, okay, is that this is the only religion underneath the sun that has this amount of figures that are representing black individuals. Clearly, that's in painting format, that's in, statue format, that's in doll format, that's in every single form of art in which you can think of. Elle Freak in France is a black Madonna. She carries a big crown on her head, big crown, bro. Jewels all over and all this other. Well, we're not understanding the power of this, and we're not, and especially the fact that these saints have been worshipped, and rituals have been dedicated to them for eons, hundreds of years now already, before we running into it right now. So they've been over there. I mean, bro, I've seen it. You've seen me throw out the pictures all on the Instagram. Yeah. They're all over the internet. There's big pictures of black Jesuses and black Madonnas, and it's all white. Crowd out there parading with them, holding up the doll, and was like, what are you talking about? And a lot of black people don't know what they're looking at because they don't have the historical literacy to really comprehend what's going on. Because you gotta study a lot of tribes and understand to a point where human and ritual will never be divided, just like medicine and magic will never be divided. So you wake up in the morning, you hit your alarm clock, you hit your, you maybe sit there and flick through your phone for a second, go hop in the shower. This is your ritualistic activity. So how you eat your food, what you may eat during the course of a month, this is all ritualistic. We're not programmed to see it like that. Or we're not given the intelligence to view it in that eyeball, but that's exactly what it is.
Yeah. There's a lot of power speakers that talk about forming rituals to change your life, as far as how you get up, your thought process, and everything. What I did appreciate about some of the things that you said, that even extends into your literature as an author in discussing the medieval, is a lot of times, if I want to say to the audience out there, if we really want to understand the American slave trade, because the 720 brought out, since the civilization began, slavery began, that was a distinct mark of the founding of civilization, because people forget there were different human societies before civilization. And during the hunting-gathering period, there's no anthropological evidence that slavery existed during the hunter-gathering period. But for those who established civilization, was when slavery was established. The other thing is that definitions of slavery if you apply them today, you kind of get an idea of how the system worked. For example, in Roman times, a slave was a person who received weekly wages. It's very simple. So now you look at how many people receive weekly wages today. In the American slave trade, there was, it's a lot of horrific things going on, but there were other things that were happening that, make you go, like slaves can own property. Indentured servants couldn't. They could own their own businesses, things of that nature. So, you know, what is freedom really? You know what I'm saying? But what I believe Keenan Booker was getting at, as far as with Catholicism, if you're looking for dogma, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the science behind the sainthood, the science behind some of the rituals that affect a society that was birthed from Catholicism. You know what I'm saying? And the amount of melanated people within Catholicism that is just completely erroneous. The religion of Protestantism was the catalyst of the Ku Klux Klan. It was like the foundation of the Ku Klux Klan. So that's why when Kennedy was elected president, there was a fear, not only among but among the clergy of the Protestantism. There was a fear, like, this dude's Catholic, he might be president, he might be in cahoots with the Pope and all this crazy stuff. But when you look at the KKK, there's something, we'll probably draw another show up. I have found one of the manuals that deals with membership and their creed. And one of the amazing things about their creed that fascinated me was it was a part of the creed to preserve the Negro race. That's part of the Ku Klux Klan's creed, but only as second, as subjective humanity. So when you understand that that's part of the Ku Klux Klan principles is to preserve the Negro race, because their point of view is that these were one of the animals that were created before Adam. So their destruction is like fated because there were older race that's dying like older races before. So we're not going to interfere with that process. We're just going to guide it, you know what I'm saying, and let it happen itself. That's their viewpoint. But when you understand that, you can look at the political world and really not get caught up in the brainwashing, because you can understand how a politician can get up and talk about doing things to preserve the Negro race, because that's part of the Klan's agenda. You know what I'm saying? And so just let them die out their own way. You know what I'm saying? But in Catholicism, as you mentioned, there's a lot of saints, and the energy, is untapped, for the most part, by people of this hemisphere. Like, no one's talking about Saint Benedict or praying to him, using the mind energy to connect with his mind. And then let alone any other leader that exists in this hemisphere, because everything is affected by Protestantism. So that factor in itself limits the African-American population for being able to utilize mind energy to connect with these portals called saints, to tap into these resources that can help improve their condition. You see what I'm saying? You know what I mean? So that's what.
Well, the thing about Catholicism, bro, is you have to be experienced, man. Literally, you have to have due diligence in order to comprehend, because what's being presented, the Catholicism section of the money religion, is what you want to call the technology of the saints. But like you also said, you can feel the dust on all the Black Madonnas and all the Black saints right there, because it's a whole section that has been preserved. I guess for me, because I went there and I claimed it, 120 different Black Madonnas are in volume 3. Oh yeah, and the books will be here. So the books are here. Okay. So make your orders now. You know what I'm saying? So all 3 volumes for $100 in full color. You know what I'm saying? So I had to put that together, and then the archangels and all of that. It is a technology system. You have to understand that there's a full map. And this map is aligned with, it mirrors astrology. A lot of the saints have ancient gods inside of them. um, from different mythology systems,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And there's a lot of power that can be harnessed and utilized here, but it can only be utilized once you understand the principles of love.
Mm-hmm.
And the principles of love is a difficult one for Black folk. I just say it, you know, it's difficult. You know, the mind structure really isn't designed for it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the way they naturally go about things. You know, and I know that's hard. It's hard for people to take or whatever, but I know what I'm talking about. You know, I've seen a lot. I don't want to go through a whole bunch of personal experiences to draw up examples of what I'm stating, but you all know. Well, I mean, it's clear in the rap music. I mean, there's ghettos in the world that are worse than American ghettos, right?
Mm-hmm.
But does the music from these individuals in those ghettos come out bragging about the ghetto?
Mm-hmm.
Do the people that,
Yeah.
No, they don't. They
Yeah.
don't. You see, African American music in America is the only music that brags about the ghetto, brags about females in degenerative status, I pay child support type thing, and they'll wear a t-shirt with a girl on a stripper pole. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That is just a part of the Black culture thinking dynamic, and that's what's being. We don't know if it's art imitating life or life imitating art. Whatever the case, the fact is that it is there. You know, we can get on Amazon right now, and there's books being written where individuals are saying, this hoe got roaches in her house. That's the title of the book. You know, now this book is getting 1,000 sales, 10,000 sales, and guess who's buying it? Kids in Germany, and kids in Australia is buying it. And you got little white kids in Wyoming and Colorado reading this garbage. And this is feeding the imagery and the view stance on the Black race, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of the whole mind structure of the Black culture on a standard is negative, is degradative, it's worthless, it's dependent, it's not, a conquering mentality, it's very fearful, for it to take 300 years for somebody to study the individuals that you're complaining about, it really shows the fear status, and it also shows the mental capacity. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
I think a lot of
so,
it is downtrodden, and some of it, because the thing about it is that there's a certain conflicting element in the community, and the element is that we need help, and then the other element is that we're equal. So those are conflicting elements. You can't need help and be equal. It's a conflicting element. So if a person says, look, we need help, we're in a bad situation, you have to realize all that entails. Because when you say that to someone else, and you say it to someone who was abusing you, whatever, that can mean that you need medication. You might be psychologically in need of a diagnose, different things of that nature. That's how that's being perceived. Because historically, wars, slavery, these things have happened, and people want to paint the worst of the worst imagery. But if it's about money and you're on the way, the worst of the worst is coming, regardless of what time period that you lived in. And maybe more worse then in those periods than now. You know what I'm saying? Or what was more recent, you know what I'm saying? But people want to paint it the worst of the worst as if you're standing here, you should be pitied, and then someone's gonna suck you off, but you can't. But no one can invite you to their house. But you can go to everyone else's houses. But no one, you can't invite no one to your house.
yeah, you can't, no, yeah, I can't, I don't invite no, nah. I don't invite too many people, no. I don't invite no niggas
What
to
I'm
my
saying,
house.
like in the sense of like, you see like a lot of people going to the nicer sides of town, different communities, enjoying the golf course and all these different things. But people can say what they want, but until you can invite someone to your house, to your hood, and they have an agreeable time without the threat of being harassed or beaten or robbed because they're indifferent, then there is no equality.
Right. I'm not. I'm not.
Yeah,
Me, I don't get down, man. Like these type of conversations, talking about saints and talking about Catholicism or anything like that. I won't talk to more than 2 Negroes at a time if we're physically in the same room,
yeah,
because it's gonna get
yeah.
to, oh, I
But I
had
think
a dream,
ultimately,
and they
yeah,
trying to prove
yeah,
something.
yeah, they're talking
It gets to a big
dogma.
shot match. Yes.
Yeah, it gets into dogma. But I think ultimately, for the listeners out there, to really drive the point home, as far as what was 720 saying, because some of the words may appear harsh, is just basically um, understanding the technology of emotions is the true education that people talk about. They're not talking about the idea of going to get a degree. Anyone can imitate, because that's it's more imitation, because it deals with passing tests and reciting words. That's imitation. But when you deal with the level of education, true education is dealing with the technology of emotions. I'll give you an example. You can have a group of people who have been oppressed go to a rally, and they could talk about their enemy and get very upset. They did this to us. They did that to us. They did this to us. But if there is no discourse about healing, what will happen is that those people will go back to their communities angry, and they have no way to turn the anger on except to each other. And it's inevitable, because once anger possesses you, it has to have an outlet. If you're not in contact with whatever that outlet is, it's going to flip on each other. And this is how truth without virtue could be distorted. So all of these goons who talk about positivity by inciting hate amongst other people that's deemed as positive is not positive, and it tears down the community. The second thing is that you cannot beat the karma of life. The idea that life has mistreated you has a lot to do with some law that's been broken. And usually, if you listen to any civil rights leader, they will admit that in the fine print, although they try to encourage the people to move on. And a lot of that times that's lost. Work on the mental and the emotional technology, and you can do wonders. But if you stay in the sense of tell someone that we're equal and that you were abused and the worst of the worst, that's like, even now when I look at the voting and people say you should do this and you should do that, that sort of thing. Maybe you should, you know what I'm saying? It's up, those things are personal, up to the individual. But I have to kind of compare it to, if you really feel abused, other than what the media makes out of it, because the media was never your friend anyway. Anytime an article comes out, you could be a suspect and you're in the newspaper. But now all of a sudden the media is behind you and they're reporting 3 or 4 stories on the road that they would never reported years ago. So I have to wonder. But what I do know is I never knew who Walter Cronkite was voting for. That's the real news. See, when it gets to something else, that's editorial news. But I never knew who Walter Cronkite was voting for. You understand what I'm saying? Because that was real news. It wasn't about what his opinion was. He was just there to relate the facts. All this editorial news, when you remove that, you get an idea. But what I was going to say is that if you look at the situation of people who are oppressed and the idea of voting, it's sort of like an abused woman making excuses for her lover. You know what I'm saying? Like, you giving this dude another chance. Like, the whole situation is just so like, oh, I've been abused. I've been abused. I need money. I want you to pay me, but I'm gonna make love to you every time you vote for the person. Voting, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna bring it back around because it does affect our conversation of Catholicism. 720 is the medieval dude. I'm the Babylonian dude. I studied Babylon thoroughly. We only knew about Babylon during the late, I would say, going into the 1800s. As far as factual, people thought Babylon was a mythical city. Some people suggested it. The history was there because the Bible mentioned it. But people thought, so what happened was they found the Gilgamesh epics, and we can prove the Bible. We found Noah's flood. There was a Babylonian, Mesopotamian account of the Gilgamesh epics. So all these dudes rushed there. Why was all of these anthropologists who happen to have master's degree in laws also biblical scholars is beyond me. But what they did find is another language in there. But to make a long story short, in ancient Babylon, there's an account that comes from a Sumerian count called Ishtar, Anana, and Dumuzi, which was later in the Babylonian days, Ishtar and Dumuzi. But the inauguration process for the kings of Babylon was like this. They had to get with the priestess of Ishtar, who had to raise up the kundalini of the king. She was designed, taught in the tantric arts to do so. You can research this online. I will put a link in the description. She would have to make the king have 50 orgasms, exactly 50 a number, in front of a crowd of 300 people. Sometimes it would take him 3 or 4 days to achieve that amount. You know what I'm saying? Orgasms. So the idea of 50 states voting for a president of the United States is completely from Babylon. It's completely from Babylon. Ishtar was a Venusian goddess. The Statue of Liberty is copper. It's a Venusian element. It's the same exact thing. There was 50 states. So who knows how that will go? Like maybe after 50 presidents, there might be a monarchy in the United States. Who knows how that will go? You know what I'm saying? But I'm just saying all of that to say, like, when you look at the voting process, if you don't really understand what you're involved in, then you're creating a karmic relationship or a dependent relationship. I mean, I really doubt that the Nazis, regardless of how nice one side of the Nazi party was opposed against the other, would Jews participate in that election? You know what I'm saying? I don't think that Jews will really participate in that election if it was two sides of the Nazi party. So if you're not going to participate, or if you have this, we need to get this, sort of thing done, and you owe us attitude, that's just going to keep you in the back seat, because that ain't going to happen. You know what I'm saying? Like, I mean, as far as oaths is concerned, it's a possibility. I would like to see maybe some, reparations, but then we got to deal with the fact that there were 3,775 African-American slave owners along the eastern seaboard counted in the year 1830. Are we suing them because they put money in the Civil War on the Confederate side? That was their flag. 3,000 African-American slave owners on the eastern seaboard in 1830? You don't even know what games, the population, they don't even know what games are being played on them. When you look at the Louisiana Slave Act, I think it was of the same year, 1830, no black man could buy a white slave. They wasn't even labeled as white. Once they became a slave, they were labeled as black. I've seen the court papers from the years of the early 1800s of African-American women trying to sue Irishmen for child support in Massachusetts in the year 1800. You see what I'm saying? So a lot of things have been going on that have been the same things in this country, you know what I'm saying? But I think that once you step out of these narratives that are used to keep your mind entangled, you know what I'm saying? I was listening to this woman, she's a little controversial figure on the music scene now, Jaguar Wright. And one thing she said in one of her interviews was that she was in England and she saw a beautiful couple. The guy was black as midnight and the woman is white as snow. And she said she was the only person that was staring at them in the room because she was American. And that's how everybody knew that she was American, because this is what's wrapped around the American's mind is race. You go to a party, I'm just trying to figure out what you are, like stupid stuff. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't really think, no. I don't think that's wrapped around the American mind, okay? Because I go through this all the time, What you have around the American mind is the lack of comprehension of their environment. And that's why I wrote these books, okay? And due to the lack of the comprehension of their environment, they think every other black male is supposed to be in the same position as them. And they think every black female should be in the same position as the black male. If you observe, like if you go to a Mexican event, you don't see Mexicans cutting at the eye with each other because they got a certain type of woman with them, If it you don't see that shit amongst white males. White males ain't cutting their eyes, staring at each other when they walking by to see if, what type of jewelry he got on or how fine he looked. I don't pay attention to another male when I'm out and about. And black males have a very big problem, whether they want to use that as gang banging or whatever cloak they want to use. They have a problem with paying attention to another male.
Mm-hmm.
When you're out and about, and your goal is a woman. If the goal is not a woman, then you need to go out to achieve your goal, do whatever you're doing, and take your ass back to your house or whatever you're doing. There doesn't need to be, like for instance, the rioting. Black people don't own a lot of businesses and storefronts downtown. They damn sure don't own or produce big brands. What's going down here in Las Vegas? Black people are coming down here to Las Vegas off of cheap prices and cheap flights, and this is their first time being able to come down here because everything is cheap. And then they see all these big stores, they see all these big prices on the products, and they can't play, and they feel excluded. They subconsciously and unconsciously feel excluded. So then when they feel excluded, and then what's also another play is they think they're stars because of what's being shown on Love and Hip Hop and on TV, correlated to how they dress. Nobody else is dressed like Love and Hip Hop. Nobody else is dressed like Future Drake. The Hindu community that comes down here, the Asian community, the white people that come down here, whether they be from the Cowboys or nobody else is dressed like that. So then the black women are on the strip. They're all half naked in the fishnets, and they're, they think they're the star of the show. So then when they're finally paying attention, that ain't nobody paying attention to them, they feel mad and angry, and now they got to have a chimp out. Now they blow up, and now it's a shooting, and now it's a stabbing, and now it's a screaming, and all of this other shit because wasn't nobody paying attention to you from the get-go. Why does anybody need to pay attention to you? You have deep-rooted psychological issues. You see what I'm saying? Because you don't understand what's going on in your environment. You're not really, like a lot of black women aren't shown in Hollywood right now. What is the black female representation on TV right now or in media? What, a Megan Thee Stallion, a Cardi B who is just drunk and short of tits out? Now, I didn't have no problem with the picture, whatever. But, that isn't a good view for what black women are supposed to be represented as a mother or as a wife or the standard that we as males have created for the stereotype for a woman to maintain, and she's not doing it. But if we didn't have that stereotype, they wouldn't even shave. They fucking.
Yeah, the thing about it is I kind of feel you on that because that's one thing that I do have to compliment Keenan Booker on when his writing and also in his speech. Usually if I'm talking to a person of a melanated person, a lot of times in every other word in the speech, you would hear entertainment slur. Like, is this like this? And you could see that these people live through the entertainment. But here's the trick about all of that I have to sometimes think about. Art is good because art is probably one of the highest spiritual sciences. People could listen to good music or, see a painting and it just transcends. There's no dogma behind it. But entertainment, here's the thing with entertainment that it's important for melanated people to understand is that entertainers in ancient times were court jesters. You see what I'm saying? So Donna Summer, I remember when I was a little boy, she had a hit song every year on the radio. No one's talking about Donna Summers now. 20 years from now, the people who are out there won't be talked about anymore. It's a fast food drug. But a lot of us live through it because it's a sort of legal game that a lot of money could be made through. But when you look at the powers behind it, it's a whole another circus. So I'm just saying that it can also be a form of a drug. Like you mentioned, a woman, she could think she's the star of the show because she's imitating something that she sees on Love and Hip Hop. Meanwhile, we have all these shows, as other people have mentioned recently in politics. Why they don't love us? We have all these shows, all this, because no one has these shows. There's no Asian top 10 show. It's all Asian cast in the United States. There's no top 10 show where there's a cast. the TV is the fish tank. It's a way to look at people without being in contact with that world. And we think like, oh, we're on this because it's a force. In some ways, it is a force of influence because it does bring about a familiarity with just the features of certain people. But really, outside of that, there's not really anything that people engage. It's like, oh, here's the court jester. He's the fool's card in the tarot deck. He's playing with all these instruments and
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Now, the word entertainment is entertaint. Ment. Ment is mental. Whenever you see the MENT, that's mental. Mint. Yeah. So enter the taint into the mind. Okay. And it's tainted imagery. Why is it tainted? Because it's false. It's an illusion. You see, and that's why jesters and rappers and all other people who bounce up and down the stage are usually classified as a clown and usually end up with deep-rooted psychological issues because, well, a lot of the psychological issues that they end up with comes from a lot of different areas. But one of the main ones is that they're not educated enough to understand their incarnations that they're putting through the media to the people through their behavior in the movement. You have to understand that, when you're watching a play or some shit, is you're watching the behavior, and the behavior will align in your brain on certain acts to create a behavior within inside yourself. You see what I'm saying? Depending on who talked to who, eyes, and all of this other stuff that's inside this scene. You see what I'm saying? So basically, they're planting an operation, an activity inside your mind. Okay. So, when you're doing that, you're forcing your body inside of an illusion, but in essence, you're in a reality. So then that's where you get into the space of a jester, and you don't get into a space of any type of respect because you're enforcing an illusion, and humans need reality to survive. We need division.
That's the thing.
Right. We need
difference. Because they can't distinguish between the two. So, a president will give a speech and someone's talking about a scene from a movie. Like, oh man, Trump said this. Oh, this is like the scene in the movie. And it's like, no, that's entertainment. This is something else. So you really can't vote because you're not in the reality. You see what I'm saying? You're in the entertainment, and it becomes a blurred vision. You see what I'm saying? On so many different levels. I mean, it was utilized heavily on us because we aspire to be seen, to be recognized because of the racial structure or just even the structure of it itself. We, there's this inner doubt of our equality, let's just say. So everything now has to be verified. Like, even if it's a movement that has a name, okay, this is what, you are, whatever, it has to be all over. It has to be on your socks. It has to be on your front door. It has to be spray painted on your window. When, people don't, who really own up to what they're doing, who come from different countries, they don't have Sweden on their socks or on the back of their shirt. Maybe they rock a hat once in a while, but it's not on their door. It's not in every word of their mouth. Well, the Swedish, we do this. So, the Swedish, we perform cunnilingus like this. So, the Swedish, we cook like no one's saying that. You see what I'm saying? But because of the self-doubt, it manifests in overcompensating what I am.
Yeah, and also all the caveman talk and all of that shit. And all that shit, the caveman talk and all that shit actually comes from social propaganda that was actually given to Negroes to make them feel like they have something and have somebody to blame, which is also a limited mind frame. When you're pointing the finger and blaming at somebody, you're calling somebody a caveman that could place you in their jail. So it's not even, it doesn't even make sense, So
crazy,
like that, and the real reason the conversation went this route is because
the love element in the Catholicism you were talking
about. That's what I was just about to say. In order to get inside Catholicism, you're not going to be able to comprehend none of this. So even when we talk about the whole hatred of Jesus, or trying to figure out if Jesus was real or not, and did he conduct miracles and all this other stuff. It's that is not a literalism. You're not supposed to look at that in a literal aspect. You're only supposed to look at that in an energy aspect.
Right.
But you're not going to find that energy aspect until you go through the multitude of different saints, and you see that each saint compiles a completely different energy pertaining to their story and pertaining to their feast days and their patrons and their attributes. And that whole story and that saint is complete within that energy.
Yeah.
Boom, you go to a different saint. It's a different energy with a whole different story, whole different thing. Da, 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 da. Same with the Black Madonnas, same with the Marys, same with the dates and all of this other stuff. You can feel it, you see, and you can feel it. So if you can't feel love and passion and singing to the woman and all of this other stuff, and with the biting on the rose and on the bended knee, then you're definitely not going to get an invite towards the Catholicism. Catholicism is an earned right. You have to understand, just like Judaism is an earned right. They're all right. A religion is nothing but a psychological level of thought, okay, and what you can handle. So Catholicism, on the perspective that I've introduced, is definitely medieval Catholicism, which predates the modern day thought. So do not put a comparison or a relation, because how I like to title it is called, what you phrased, the technology of the saints, because that's exactly what it is. I understand the saint dynamic in correlation to the way mythology systems are designed. I also understand a lot of other root elements pertaining to our everyday existence that is related to these saints, and that is our names, that is our occupations, that is our our style of thinking and operating, and all of that. So it's there for you. And the Catholic level that I'm introducing, and which stems from the medieval times, it has a mandate of love, and it has a mandate of submission, it has a mandate of precision, shall I say. And a lot of this information and a lot of these energies that I'm coming from, they do directly come from wars. They come from mystical wars that are on the deep ancient side of Catholicism, when you want to talk about the monsters and the pagan level of the battles that the saints had to go through during that time period. This is also talking about the battle of witchcraft, the burning of witches, and all of that. These are all rites that are involved in Catholicism, and we need to be mature about it because it is a part of human history. Okay, and that is the balance of how we operate in existence. The real thing that's going on here is the advancement of the human thought. And the advancement of the human thought, like all things pertaining to growth and mammalianism here on this planet, is puberty. Puberty and maturity is going to happen, and unfortunately, Generation X, our generation, have been stagnated by many different elements in this area. So we're not mature. We don't have complexity of thought. We do not understand ourselves individually in our gender spaces. We don't understand the existence that we live in, and we don't understand how the elements in our environment affect us, and what our play out is from that, and what the backfire, shall I say, is from how our environment affects us on a multitude of different areas. Psychologically, food wise, especially chemically, humans are nothing but chemical computers, in my understanding. So, and that's also dealing with memory, which is not necessarily a chemical, but everything else is chemical. So I can shift you up estrogen, testosterone, so on and so forth. Yeah, and we've been altered. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to just inject right quick, because I remember you had just mentioned about, we had gotten to start off with saints, and then we got into the situation with, oppressed peoples in America, quote unquote, Black people. And a lot of that conversation came out before we go back into where we're at, is basically that the fact that Catholicism, certain religions, you can't get into because your vibration has to be there. It's like in the plant world of nature, plants communicate to each other, but you can't see that they're going to shut down around the person who doesn't have the vibration to rise up to that point. You see what I'm saying? And so with people who are suffering, some of it is, heavily oppression. A lot of it still stems from the fact that, is it that difficult to love, your brother? You know what I'm saying? So, I just want to just throw that. That's why we had brought that element into the discussion, because a lot of times when we, like last week when we discussed about Catholicism, people are trying to get in the religious debate about dogma, and that's nothing what we're talking about. We're not talking about the religiosity of certain things. But I have come to recognize that theology is good because it invokes a matter of principle, you know what I'm saying, which a lot of times people may, if you understand yourself and you can live like, look, man, I'm living like this, whatever, then that's all good. But for a lot of people, they deceive themselves in thinking they could be above certain principles, and they don't have a really disciplined or routine way of not feeding into anything. You know what I'm saying? Certain things. So those people do need theology, you know what I'm saying? And it'll only be deceptive. We would to think not. I mean, I would rather be around a person with principles than someone who's I'm worried about who might be scheming on me. I mean, I think that's natural, everyone's, situation and stuff like that. But the thing is, the way the world puts it out or is put out in certain communities is that's like a form of weakness. So now you have to kind of like, do the Superman Clark Kent thing, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? To be really who you are. It's crazy, you know what I'm saying? But as far as I see a lot of individual changes, you know what I'm saying? I do see some changes in the upcoming generation. Generation X, they got caught up in a couple of devices that were set up for them. You know what I'm saying? The cheese traps, they worked, you know what I'm saying? But go ahead, brother. I don't want to cut your wisdom off on that, but I did want to inject that just to give like some groundness, to the conversation. I know like when we had spoke earlier, I think initially, what impressed me about the Catholic technology is the indestructible saints. I think you had mentioned this. And then later on, I actually looked into it. So, oh man, let me write an article about this on the blog page. I think I had sent you about the incorruptible saints. And they try to explain away the process, but it's still not understood how a body could be like 800 years old and look like it was buried 3 days ago. You know what I'm saying? And this occurs only amongst like saints. It doesn't occur amongst, some president who,
There's the mysticism there that you just have to bend the knee to. It's not really a mysticism that can be thoroughly found out. This is also the same with the Black Madonnas. There is definitely a power that radiates from the Black Madonnas, and they repetitively redress them.
Mm-hmm.
I think once every week, and they reclothe them, and they do all types of stuff to maintain them. Mm-hmm. And there is an alchemy of life. Mm-hmm. These are all deep, ancient Hermetic sciences, that drafted out of ancient Egypt is making art alive.
Yeah.
And is definitely found in the Catholic Black Madonnas, the archangels. It's also found in all the saints, mm-hmm. and even inside their stories alone. Just reading the stories have a certain matrix system that puts a crazy glow on the brain, and I mean, it's there. The clarity is there. You definitely need that clarity after going through volume 2 inside my work. Volume 2 is volume 2 is so heavy, it will make you feel your soul screaming for light.
Mm. Yeah, that's the thing I think that also, gave me a deeper, curiosity. Let me look into this because, as I mentioned before, I have been dealing with Babylon a lot. So when I started learning about the saints, because a lot comes from Egypt, A lot of stuff comes from Egypt. And I believe at one time Egypt and Babylon were dual because some of the pharaohs spoke Akkadian. That we know. You know what I'm saying? So, there's certain things that we find in Babylon, but the problem I was having, because I worked as a spiritualist with the Babylonian pantheons for quite some time, is that it was very fragmented because you had like a lot of wars and a lot of information that was destroyed. So when I looked into Catholicism, I could see exact replication. For example, the Trinity doctrine, which is, the Father, Son, the Holy Ghost, but you also have Enki, Enlil, and Anu. And Enlil was sometimes called Mulil because he ruled over the netherworld, the Holy Ghost. But he was a very benevolent deity. He was the one that was like, let's destroy the humans at the flood, all this crazy stuff. And then Enki, it's different in the sense of the morality of some of the characters. But when you understand how to work with them from the Babylonian perspective, I guess like someone who works with Egypt, you can inherit a new device and know how to use it. The same way, if you're working with a certain form of computer technology that's dated from 1979 and you get an Apple, or some new, PC, you're like, wow, man, I could do a lot of this because I know how this technology works. You see what I'm saying? And that's the key thing. Also, I think in 720's discourse is that, when you understand how technology works, it gives you a greater appreciation for a system whole intact. I only know of 2 systems that are wholly intact that have mystical and alchemical properties. One is probably the Norse system with Odin and that sort of thing, because that's never really been touched because they didn't have a lot of wars up there, and Catholicism. All the other systems where you go into the Mayan civilization,
everything is crushed, right? Everything is tampered with, and grave diggers, and everything is written up, translated all crazy. That's why I didn't really mess with Egypt. That's why I always left Egypt alone, because I never, you tore up. They just found 50 new mummies down there, a sarcophagus is down there. And now we got to rewrite the whole story and figure out some other stuff.
And then you fell off because you have no measurements. See, like
there's no limit, there's no boundaries on it. You know what I'm saying? And and I'm glad you mentioned that, because I need to clarify. A lot of people are just the Catholic. Look, you need to understand that Catholic and witchcraft, which witchcraft in today's essence can be also classified as gangsterism, right? Yin and yang, okay? So what do you got? You got the mafia, they confessed with the Pope, they went to the Pope, to the priest, right? You got the cartel, right? Where they go, they report to the priest. You see what I'm saying? They report to the Pope. So what there is there's a unique understanding on the thin line between love and war. Because love and war is both a part of existence. And Catholicism submits to existence. And they have computerized and created this technology system throughout the saints. And that is it. You know what I'm saying? That is order. It's in order. So because I love order, because I love instruction, because I love power, because I love dominance, because I love women, because guess where I fit? I fit with Catholicism. I don't fit with that other shit. You see what I'm saying? So it's not that I'm just over here bending knee and going to mass and doing all of this. Nah, the money religion, how we operate with this understanding, is a medieval dynamic. You understand? Where many things were permitted by the priest. Brothels were permitted because it was a sewer line that ran underneath the rich and the poor, and that is a unnecessary. It's a necessary evil, is what it's called. You see what I'm saying? So that's it. Yeah, the prostitution was allowed during the time. All of that stuff is Saint Thomas Aquinas. Shout out to Saint Thomas Aquinas. Shout out to Augustine the Pope. His mother Monica Saint Augustine of Hippo.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to watch that stuff too, because they'll do double names but of different locations. So
Yeah.
you got Saint Augustine of Hippo. You got his mother is Saint Monica of Hippo, and you know you got Saint Clare of Assisi, Saint Francis of Assisi. You got
It's
Saint
completely.
Alfonso of Liberty. I can name saints all day, bro,
Yeah.
because a lot
Yeah.
of once you learn them, you'll see that there's a whole system of saints that are already your incarnations because of what you lived through in life. You
Mm-hmm.
see what I'm saying? But go ahead. What were you about to say?
Yeah, it's a complete system, and it gives us an idea in some um, remote form how the ancient world worked, how ancient religion worked. You know what I'm saying? But it's advancing, and I think another thing that I want to explain to the readers is that, and it comes from me researching it. I mean, I've done a lot of different things as far as not only research, but actually working with things where once I learned a certain template, let me pull out the fire bowl and, let me work with, certain elements. And one thing I would say is that certain things, when you look at man's consciousness, it has to be in conjunction or has a continuity with what is progressive. You see what I'm saying? You can call something that is extremely ancient, but it may not have a progressive element to it. In other words, like if you look at even some of the Egyptian mythologies, you have situations where Horus and Set sodomized each other. You know what I'm saying? But you don't really see those principles in Catholicism in the sense, like no one's saying, Jesus sodomized Satan or something like that. So it's a more.
Well, they do gotta. There's a couple of saints that are
Right,
the
right.
saint.
That I understand, but it's just.
The saint. Hold on, let me show you. There's a saint that represents homosexuality. That's Saint Sebastian.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true. But what I mean is that the element of virtue is still not corrupted. In other words, like sometimes in the ancient myths, you would see something where people barking on each other, but here you can see actual people's real life and connection to how they worked. You know what I'm saying? Which is very unique. But that's a good point, though. That's something to take in consideration that everything in the human experience, that energy is captured. You see what I'm saying? And it's understood to work through a different medium. What I do like about it is that you can go into different outside of Buddhism, because Buddhism and Catholicism compare greatly also. But outside of those things, usually most of those religions or technological systems all amount to hero worship. Because you go inside some of these religions, you could never be Abraham, you could never be David. So no matter what you did in life, it could never be accounted for. But in Catholicism, the ultimate goal is sainthood. Really what they're saying is the ultimate goal is to be remembered. The ultimate goal is to be awake in the post life and working with the bigger energy and helping human beings out. So there's there's admiration, but if David was a friend and this one was a friend, then what you have is people trying to copy that throughout their technologies. Okay, so in 2040, who's new John the Baptist and who's this dude? You know what I'm saying? Instead of looking at, hey, this dude did some goodness, and this is how you got to think, well, what would so-and-so do? You don't have to do that in Catholicism because everyone has room to exercise their goodness, and you could draw up an example of numerous individuals.
One thing that made me like, this is some powerful stuff is they gave focused on the downtrodden.
Mm-hmm.
So there's saints for harlots, there's saints for murderers, there's saints for, raped children, or there's saints for failed marriages, there's a saint for, pregnant teenagers, there's a saint for orphans, there's a saint for kids who were beheaded, there's a saint for kids who were boiled, like Saint Vitus. Saint Vitus is one of the saints that immediately came to me during the whole 3-volume series, and I didn't know it until I really paid attention. But Saint Vitus is the saint that's over the dancing mania, and he's also over music.
Mm-hmm.
Another saint that's over music is one of the very first saints, Saint Cecilia. Saint Cecilia is the first incorruptible saint, and she's basically like a marble statue,
Mm-hmm.
and her body is supposedly inside the marble. you
Wow.
know. And yeah, she's a saint over music. There's many saints that are over authors and books. So, you know, like me, because I'm an author in a book, I write books automatically. All of those saints are aligned to me on, you know what I'm saying? And the same with you, because you're an author, you know, you write books. So
Yeah.
it's the same thing. Yeah. The Saint Vitus was an 8-year-old boy who was boiled in Rome. That's
Wow.
why I brought him up.
Wow.
Yeah. That's why you don't know much about Roman history. Roman history is pretty much emperors frying, killing, boiling, all types of saints, you know. And there's actually 3 ranks of saints you got. The Roman saints, and then you have the medieval saints, and then you have modern saints. You know, so there's also, and it's kind of funny, we're talking about saints right now. They're in the process of making a gamer saint, because, you know, this is now a new area of existence
Right.
that aligns with the, you know, with the soul of man. And that's the whole thing. If you love existence, then your mind would automatically fall into complexity because of the many different situations that you that have been presented to you that you were supposed to take from A to Z. If you avoid these situations, then guess what? You have a lack of experience, and you stay in the space of immature and infancy. With this infancy, you will also be classified as an animal. As we grow older in age, and psychological complexity is a mandate for you to maintain a status as an insane adult. Okay? And that's all there is to it.
Which they call legally the minority, the immature ones. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, well, that's why it's called minority, because you're only using a minor space of your mind. You use the minor part of your brain. So you are called the minority. You can only use a minor space of your race. You know, you can't use the totality of your race. So due to the fact that you can't fly to Africa and use somebody there automatically, and a white man can fly to Russia and automatically get some getway, you know. So that's why we're called minority. They're called majority. They see they can slip all of that on you because you haven't expanded the intelligence into these realms in order to figure it out. We literally have intentionally blocked, we limited our mind by cloaking it with the religious argument. Everything that I do is psychological, sociology, anthropology, biology, astrology, and history. You know, I also like to play with a couple other areas that's in there, but those are my roots. You know, and I'm not, and I do deal with theology, but theology is religion inclusive with philosophy. You see what I'm saying? So that's not just the religious base of, okay, Moses made some Jews walk through some water. You know, that's the same thing as Junebug went to 7-Eleven. You know, so we're not going to talk about who traveled here, what war was fought all day. That's not going to do anything to understanding what was going down on the everyday battle for the common man. Okay, and when you understand that, then we understand more ritualistic. We understand ancient religious principles that were being discussed amongst the common man, okay, which will give us a way bigger foresight on what was really going on, and how we can develop from that. And is it inclusive with industry? Because everything dealing with religion is not usable. When you break your arm, you break your arm and you call 911. Now they do not ask you who your Messiah is. You understand? So when you go to a job, go to a job, they're not asking you about your Lord. Okay, you go to the bank to open up an account. So everything about religion is irrelevant. Okay. Not only that, go ahead.
I also, what got me to understand the clarity of the saints was actually time I spent in the East, because in the East, I think I mentioned this in the last episode, you know, someone goes, oh man, they got millions of gods and millions of Buddhas, but they're equating on the level of a Protestant's view of Jesus, when it's not that. It's like, look, this is a force of influence in the environment. We have to acknowledge it. And so that's the same thing with the saints. It's a force of influence, and some people's lives exemplify that force. And so that's what it is, where Jesus in the whole paradigm is the love element. that everything emanates from. But these other forces, or what some people call radical elements, have to exist. But some people emulate them at a greater quantity. So let's recognize the person. And he's here to help other individuals if they have a struggle in that area of life, or maybe be progressive in that area of life, or like, yo, man, I want some advice. How did you do it? You know what I'm saying? So what's cool about it, and which is why a lot of this knowledge may be purposely, I don't get into conspiracy of it, but what's cool about it, even if a person who feels, who is oppressed can apply it, is that your world is not limited. It's not limited to what is breathing in front of you. It's you can tap into it the same way you can read a bio, you can watch a movie, Selma. You can watch Selma. The person that they're depicting is no longer here. God bless his soul. But you can still benefit from that individual's perspective. You can communicate. Energy cannot be destroyed. So mind to mind, you could connect and say, hey, like, how do such and such and such. Anything, as a magician, I learned several things. Anything that you connect your mind to, especially through ritual, it's going to manifest, in your reality, because you're planting part of it in your subconscious. You see what I'm saying? So you can see the external manifestation of it. You know what I'm saying? And that you can use to guide you or to block you against other forces that you replace. It's really about, for me, it's really about like thought replacement, because the thoughts exist. So, hey, instead of me throwing this thought in my head and letting it gain on my energy, why not throw this thought in my head, let it gain some energy so I can shape my reality through that. You see what I'm saying? And that's just what it is. It's a science level, you know what I'm saying? But I guess because of the religious triggers in people, they can't see beyond that, you know what I'm saying? And so, if you see like someone like, let's say a person is a rap artist, like, hey man, I want to talk to Jay-Z because he made, whatever you like. Some rap artists like the dude who has the most money, so they would talk to Jay-Z. Some may more a lyrical person, but whatever you aspire to, you want to look at one thing about any form of spiritual technology that I've always critiqued was, what is it doing for the people? You know what I'm saying? What is it doing for the people? So if the people are impoverished, then something's not correct. You know what I'm saying? If you're very religious and impoverished, something's not correct with that technology. So maybe we need to look at what's going on over here and see how they're benefiting from it. But if you are closed off to that, then you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to keep running a track until you eventually get like, you know what? Maybe I should talk to them. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I should look at to see what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Because it doesn't really make sense what's going on nowadays. But you know what? It's part of the human deal, and all of us are on different levels of evolution. You know what I'm saying? So I doubt the world will ever be in the same place in the same time. Some conditions may be greater at sometimes, and sometimes some conditions could be worse at other period of times. And it depends on part of the earth, that you're living on at that time. So it's a lot of different things. But Brother 720, is a great to talk this evening. I mean, this conversation definitely burnt the house down, man. It really.
Yeah, I was just looking it up. The Saint Victor, Saint Victor guns. They got some guns called the Saint Victors, and yeah, they're AR-15s, and
Wow.
all the Saint Victors are black.
Wow.
They're black saints. Yeah, all the Saint Victors are black saints.
Wow.
Yeah, oh yeah, bro. The system that this all the matrix is a large matrix. I gotta give shout out to the Hammer of Heretics, Saint Anthony of Padua. I felt it when the Saint slammed on you. When the Saint Donald slammed on my homie Donald, he's a saint over. Saint Donald is a saint over farming and whatnot. My nigga loves this shit. But anyways, when my nigga went to study in the saints, and on his job, there's saints popping up in every yard he goes to.
Yeah.
So when you fall into this science of saints, it's gonna fall onto you
Yeah.
in a reality zone, you're going to see the saints showing up everywhere. You know,
Yeah.
if a day gets heavy for you, if there's a lot of events going on that day, you need to look up what saints are on that day. All you need to do is put in feast day in that day, and then it shows up. You know, the bottom line of the system of Catholicism operates by saints. They do rituals for saints. We don't use at the money religion. We don't utilize a bunch of rituals and doing all of this. We understand the complexity of the system and have respect towards the emotional structure and what it's doing for human existence. You understand? And when it comes for the maintenance of emotions in the relation, you know, like I was just looking at Saint Victor and Saint Victor of Marseilles, who is in Upper Egypt. He is a patron over cabinet makers, torture victims, sick children, and he's invoked against lightning. You know, so yeah, I mean, they got every single
multiverse.
Yeah, oh yeah, they got every single lane of existence covered, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, even the folklore. We haven't talked about folk saints, the Saint Christopher.
That's a whole other element, you know what I'm saying? And folk
Yeah,
saints are heavily followed too, you know what I'm saying? I mean,
yeah. Well, go ahead.
Find out about Mexico, Santa Muerte. You know, that's actually the other thing that spilled me into this research. But from estimates, it's her devotees now number approximately like anywhere from 11 to 13 million, which when you look at the Jewish population globally is 14 million. So you have a cult that's almost equivalent to that population. You know what I'm saying?
Right, and that's what I'm saying. So when you include that, now take that one element on that one saint, add in all the Black Madonnas, add in all the Marys, add in all the saints, add in all the streets named by saints, add in all the hospitals named by saints. There's herbs named by saints, there's colors named by saints, there's schools, come on, bro, there's rivers, there's lakes. I'm pretty sure, I'm surprised they don't got an ocean named after the saint, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So when you take in all of that, you see that it's everywhere. You see that it's a continuous battery operating that you can utilize for power structure on whatever you want to use through the names of the saints. It's just, it's a bend the knee thing, you know? Yeah. And when you bend the knee, you show that you don't have the devil's pride. Yeah. And that's what's wrong with a lot of, the devil's mind. Those who are devil-minded, you see that? You see that? Yeah. We operate with a lot of pride, a lot of niggas got a lot of pride talking about what they ain't gonna do. All the humiliation stuff that you see white culture do, no matter how extreme it is to keep each other's pride intact, that you ain't utilizing pride. You wanna know why? Because pride limits you from whatever you may need to do to conquer. Mm-hmm. So the term by any means necessary, it can only be limited by pride. Pride or laziness, which both of them are, the seven deadlies.
Yeah, definitely, man. This has been a very. Hopefully, the audience will find this conversation very enlightening, somewhat controversial, but it's definitely stuff that needs to come out in the open. Now, I wouldn't say out in the open, but just stuff that just needs to be discussed, because a lot of us are running the same lanes, the same laps, the same attitude, and those are the shackles. Those are the modern day shackles, or the shackles on our minds and our expressions emotionally. You know what I'm saying? So once we break out of that, you know what I'm saying, get out of that, that air, because it's not progressive, and if you really love your future, you love your children, then you're going to try to provide something for them that has a lot to do with prosperity. You know what I'm saying? That's, ultimately what that is, because if you're suffering, why would you want your children to suffer like that? You know what I'm saying? So you find the technology that's useful. Forget what's in style. You know what I'm saying? Forget all that. You know what I'm saying? Because you're trying to eat. You're trying to live. You know what I'm saying? And the sky is a limit in front of you. You got the sun. You got the earth going around that. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to say this, and I'll let you close it out this time. But one thing that I always do, because a lot of people this year, 2020, has been definitely, a year where a lot of people didn't experience things. Things have happened before to this magnitude, but in the present generation, I never seen some things like this go on. I may have read about it or, but I never like was directly in it. But one thing I always give myself a little bit of ammunition is just every once in a while, look at the earth as if you were out of space and look at the earth like it was a tennis ball. That's how far you are from it. You know what I'm saying? And if it was your last day and you're floating away from the earth, what would you do if you can go back in the earth? And that will one day be your reality. You will one day be floating away from the planet. So knowing that, a 727, his quote of Malcolm X, you want to give it all that you got because one day you're going to be floating away. You know what I'm saying? You won't return in that form that you were accustomed to. So you want to make sure that you live out what you need to do. Forget all that other stuff. And so what we're saying is the science of Catholicism is one of the global instruments. There are a couple of others, but it's one of the global instruments. And once you have the global instrument, you can see yourself looking at the earth, floating away, and then you're like, man, what would I do if I was reinserted back in here? You can have that vision. You see what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with a universal science. But if you're limited to just the 6-block radius, there's nothing that you can do with that except for that 6-block radius. So, I just appreciate everyone who came to watch the video, leave comments, subscribe, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things coming up. We have Hallows Eve coming up and a lot of the books that 720's got about the Kicked Out of Heaven series is absolutely fabulous. It's a great read. It's a deep read, you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit of a extended study, and he has other material and stuff like that you definitely want to be aware of. But if you hear and you can watch this video, you know what I'm saying, it is definitely your time to shine. Don't let the opportunity pass you by because you have a lot of people who are doing it, but they're not on the radar of entertainment. You know what I'm saying? They're on the radar of doing it in reality. You see what I'm saying? So we coming on here to kind of give people an opportunity to see what the air feels like when you open up the window. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? That's what we're here for, to make that reality go on. You know what I'm saying? So while we doing our own thing, we have outlets that we both utilize individually that we're really dealing with some heavy criteria. You know what I'm saying? And trying to serve the community so that it too can evolve. You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna turn it over to 720. This is me, Sal Bay, aka Warlock Asylum. And we'll catch y'all on the next episode.
Everything is beautiful. Shouts out to Ethiopian Jews in Israel. Shouts out to Israel. Shouts out to China. Shouts out to Brazil and the Sisterhood of the Black Madonna. This is the Order of the Blessed Virgin Mary of Mercy of the Redemption of the Captives. Okay, founded by Saint Pedro Nolasco. Let's keep that clear. Okay. Shouts out to the Trump campaign, Amy Coney Barrett. Y'all leave them alone. They're good. There's going to be more money for the people. We're not doing the bidding bullshit. Okay, the responsibility is the line. No, we got to have the responsibility.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay?
It's time on that episode. Maybe that we might discuss that political level.
Oh man, she got a lot in her. And shouts out to the French Way. Yeah. Okay, all of Louisiana, New Orleans, the Florida Lee. Yeah. Y'all know how I do. Shouts out to all of LA. Shouts out to all of Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's how we're gonna keep it, man. Y'all come and get the Kicked Out of Heaven. 3-volume series. Ain't no Illuminati, ain't no Masonry mojo going on, ain't no heebie-jeebie. okay? You niggas get off your ass and stop creating excuses. You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, shouts out to all the Haitians and all the voodoo in Haiti and Palo Monte, Palo Mayambe and Cuba. All of that, I does all of that. You understand? The Congo too. You understand? So yeah. Oxford and Cambridge and all of this bullshit going on in the royal house. Meghan Markle, get that fucking shit out of there. We need silence and respect. These individuals aren't supposed to be on the fucking no goddamn videos and no fucking applications. This ain't no Instagram season for those who live in castles. You understand? Let's have some motherfucking order back on this planet. You know what I'm saying? Oh, and the uterus, you already know. We hunting for that ass. Newt, I'm coming for that ass. The literature's gonna be written. Yeah, that's all. Nigga laughing over here. Nigga, I'm coming. You understand? Mm-hmm. So yeah. So y'all watch out for the next books. Y'all get the kicked out of heaven, man. I'm gonna go out here and have a fool on the streets, man.
Yeah, we out, man. We're gonna be out of here, man. Let me just shut this down, man. All right. Peace out to Brooklyn too. You know what I'm saying? No peace up. Yeah. So we'll catch y'all later. Peace.